You owe me this for dealing with Mom all these years." That was the last message my brother ever sent me as my sister. It arrived at 6:42 a.m., buzzing softly against my nightstand while the house was still quiet. I remember thinking it was an odd thing to say before coffee, before the world had even woken up. I didn't reply right away. I never rushed with Travis. Years of experience had taught me that anything urgent from him usually meant expensive. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message. It was a banking alert. Transfer completed, $185,000. I sat up in bed, heart stuttering. That number didn't make sense. My fingers moved before my brain caught up, opening the app, refreshing it once, twice, like the screen might correct itself. Available balance, $0. I stared at the number until it blurred. $185,000. Gone in seconds. That wasn't a checking account mistake or a credit card fraud scare. That was everything. My savings, my overtime, my sacrifices, the settlement money that existed for one reason and one reason only: my daughter Rebecca's leg surgery. The money that stood between her and a lifetime of pain, braces, and limited mobility was gone. I felt the air leave my lungs as if someone had punched straight through my chest. My hands started to shake, but my mind went eerily quiet, the way it does right before a crisis fully reveals itself. Then I saw the transaction details. Authorized device, Travis's iPhone. My brother hadn't just stolen from me. He had stolen from a 10-year-old child who limped through school hallways and learned early how to hide pain behind a brave smile. He had taken money meant to put metal rods and skilled hands back into her leg and rerouted it because he believed it belonged to him. I sat there in the dark, phone glowing like a crime scene, and something inside me snapped cleanly in two. The version of me who apologized for everything, who softened her voice, who tried to keep the peace at any cost, vanished. What replaced her wasn't angry. It was focused. People later asked the same question the fraud department would ask me hours afterward. Why would a forensic auditor, someone whose career is built on tracking financial crimes, give her unemployed brother access to her bank account? The answer is simple but uncomfortable. Financial abuse doesn't begin with theft. It begins with a story. For 10 years, my family told the same one over and over until it became truth through repetition. I was the one who left. I moved 3 hours away to build a career, to escape the gravitational pull of our hometown where ambition was treated like betrayal. Travis stayed. He lived in our mother's basement, rent-free, praised endlessly for his sacrifice. I was selfish. He was loyal. It didn't matter that my job paid the medical bills or that my long hours funded holidays I never attended. What mattered was proximity. Travis was there. I wasn't. And in our family, presence mattered more than contribution. That was the trap of normalized cruelty. They framed my success as abandonment and his stagnation as virtue. Every phone call carried the same undertone. If something broke, if Mom needed help, if Travis was stressed, the unspoken conclusion was always the same. I should pay. I didn't add Travis to my account because I was foolish. I did it because I was tired of defending my right to exist without guilt. I was tired of apologizing for having a career, for leaving, for not living small enough to make everyone else comfortable. I remember the exact day I added him. 4 years ago. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and fear. I was flat on my back, both legs crushed in casts after a car accident that came out of nowhere and changed everything. Painkillers blurred the edges of the world, but I was lucid enough to understand one terrifying possibility. If I couldn't work, everything would fall apart. Travis stood at the foot of my bed. He didn't ask how much it hurt, or if I was scared. He complained that his truck had broken down and he couldn't get Mom to her appointments. "I can't carry everything alone, Julia," he said, glancing at my casts like they were an inconvenience to him. "You've got the fancy job, I've got the burden." So I added him. Authorized user, emergency access only, gas, groceries, doctor visits. That was the justification I whispered to myself as I pressed confirm. It felt like buying peace, like paying a toll to stop being the villain in a story I never agreed to star in. I didn't understand then that you can't buy peace from people who profit from your war. At first, it really was small things. Gas charges, grocery stores, pharmacy receipts. Then the definition of emergency started to stretch. A bar tab on a Friday night because he was overwhelmed. A gaming console because stress relief was important. A down payment on a brand new pickup truck because his old one wasn't reliable. I saw every charge, and I let them slide. I drove a 10-year-old sedan with a cracked bumper and brakes that screamed every morning. Travis drove a $60,000 truck paid for by my overtime. I lived in a rental with plumbing that rattled and leaked because every spare dollar went into Rebecca's surgery fund. I paid the deposit on Travis's luxury condo when he failed the credit check, telling myself I was helping him get on his feet. I told myself I was being a good sister. What I was really doing was paying rent for my place in the family. Every transfer was a reminder that my acceptance was conditional, that my value wasn't love, but money. A monthly subscription fee to be tolerated. Staring at that zero balance, the illusion finally shattered. Travis didn't steal the money because he was desperate. He stole it because he believed it was already his. In his mind, my success was compensation owed to him for staying behind, for dealing with Mom, for a life he chose and resented at the same time. He thought I was endless, a tap that would never run dry. But when you drain the account, you cancel the subscription. I closed the banking app. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened my work laptop instead. The sister who kept the peace died the moment I saw that balance. The woman who replaced her didn't care about family narratives or guilt trips. She cared about the audit. As the screen lit up my dark kitchen, I cracked my knuckles and logged into the forensic dashboard I'd used for years to track cartel money, corporate embezzlers, and international fraud rings. I never imagined I'd be using it to hunt my own brother, but the hunt had already begun. The house was silent except for the low hum of my laptop fan. Dawn hadn't broken yet, but sleep was no longer an option. Sleep belonged to people who believed their world was still intact. Mine had already collapsed, and now it was time to examine the wreckage. I didn't start with the banking app. That interface was designed to comfort customers, to soften the brutality of numbers with rounded fonts and polite notifications. I went straight to the raw data, the transaction metadata, the place where money tells the truth. Lines of code filled the screen, scrolling past like a foreign language to anyone else. To me, it was familiar, almost comforting. Every transfer leaves fingerprints, routing numbers, timestamps, intermediary hops. You just have to know where to look. The money hadn't gone straight into Travis's personal account. That would have been sloppy. Traceable, easy. Instead, it had been routed through what looked like legitimate merchant transactions, broken into chunks and stitched back together on the other side. A basic laundering tactic, the kind you learn from watching movies or reading half-informed forums. Clever enough to fool a civilian. Not clever enough to fool someone who does this for a living. I followed the trail. The receiving account name appeared on my screen, and my stomach tightened. Obsidian Ventures, LLC. The name rang a bell immediately. Not because Travis was creative, but because criminals never are. They reuse names, they recycle structures, they think sounding impressive is the same as being invisible. I opened a separate window and ran it through my professional databases. The result popped up almost instantly. Flagged entity, high risk. Known money laundering front. Associated with online gambling rings. Eastern Europe. The room felt colder. This wasn't just family betrayal anymore. This wasn't a brother stealing money to fund a truck payment or cover credit card debt. Travis had wired $185,000 directly into an international criminal network. Federal wire fraud. Money laundering. Conspiracy. Each word landed with clinical precision. There was no emotion attached yet. Just clarity. Travis hadn't just crossed a line. He'd sprinted past it and set it on fire behind him. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. For a brief moment, I wondered if he even understood what he'd done. If he knew that this wasn't something you could apologize your way out of or blame on stress. This wasn't a family argument. This was a felony with teeth. Then I pushed the thought away and kept digging. Understanding the money was only part of it. I needed context, motive, timing, intent. I pulled up his device data. Years ago, when I bought Travis his first smartphone so he could apply for jobs, I'd added him to my family sharing plan. He'd never removed himself. He probably forgot it existed, just another benefit he assumed would always be there. His location history loaded slowly, painting a quiet, damning picture. Yesterday afternoon. The same afternoon he'd texted me about taking Mom to the cardiologist, complaining about long wait times and parking fees. The same afternoon he asked for extra gas money because these trips are killing me. His phone hadn't been anywhere near a hospital. It had been parked at the Lucky 7 casino on the state border for 4 straight hours. I zoomed in. The pings clustered around one corner of the building, unmoving. Slot machines, Poker room? Somewhere you go when you're already losing. I cross-referenced the timestamps. The moment he texted me asking for gas money lined up perfectly with an ATM withdrawal inside the casino. He hadn't been caring for Mom. He'd been gambling. And when he lost everything he had left, he made a decision. He robbed me. The realization didn't make my heart race. It slowed it down. The panic I'd felt earlier drained away, replaced by something colder and more precise. This wasn't desperation. Desperation has fear in it. This was entitlement. Travis didn't believe he was stealing. He believed he was collecting. I was about to pull up his communications when I heard a soft sound behind me. Bare feet on hardwood. A familiar, uneven step. I turned. Rebecca stood in the doorway, her stuffed rabbit tucked under one arm. She was too quiet, too awake. The kind of alertness that comes from overhearing things you were never meant to understand. "Did he take it?" she asked. Her voice was steady, but her hands clenched the fabric of the toy so tightly her knuckles were white. I wanted to lie. The instinct was immediate and powerful. To protect, to soften, to tell her adults would fix it and she didn't need to worry. But I was done lying for people who hurt us. "Yes," I said, "he took it all." She didn't cry. She nodded once, slowly, as if she'd already suspected the answer. "Then we take him down," she said. It wasn't a question, it wasn't anger, it was certainty. I swallowed hard and turned back to the screen. If this was going to end the way it needed to, I'd have to prove intent. In federal cases, intent is everything. The difference between I thought I was allowed and I knew exactly what I was doing can be a single sentence. And Travis was careless. I accessed the cloud message archive. He'd deleted his recent conversation with Nicole, his girlfriend, but deletion only hides things from people who don't know where to look. The recently deleted folder still held everything. I clicked restore. The messages appeared instantly, time-stamped just 2 hours earlier. "Travis, it's done." Nicole, "Finally paid up?" Travis, "All of it." 185 grand. Nicole, "Oh my God." Travis, "Cabo, baby, first class?" I stared at the screen, the words burning into my retinas. That was what I was to him. Not a sister. Not family. A mark. Someone stupid enough to fund his escape. I took screenshots, multiple angles, metadata intact, Exhibit A. Then I layered it with location data. His messages bragging about the transfer were sent while his phone was still pinging off the casino tower. The lie to me, the theft, and the celebration overlapped perfectly. I created a folder on my desktop and labeled it simply Evidence. Bank logs, shell company profiles, message archives, GPS maps. Each file dropped into place like a brick in a wall. Behind me, a chair scraped softly. Rebecca had pulled it up next to mine. She was holding her tablet, the glow lighting her face. She didn't ask me to stop. She didn't ask to leave. "I can help," she said quietly. "I know where he hides his passwords." I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and felt something fierce rise in my chest. Pride mixed with grief. No child should have to grow up this fast, but if the world was going to force her hand, she wouldn't face it alone. I smiled. Not a gentle smile, not a comforting one, a smile of recognition. "Okay," I said, "let's finish this." The hunt was no longer personal. It was procedural, and it was far from over. I didn't call the local police. That surprises people when they hear the story. They imagine flashing lights, uniformed officers taking notes, promises to look into it. But local police handle reports. They don't intercept international wire transfers. They don't freeze offshore shell accounts, and they certainly don't scare criminals who owe money to people far worse than the state. I needed leverage. I needed speed. I needed authority that didn't ask permission. So I logged into my secure work portal. In my line of work, there's a system most people never hear about. The direct reporting channel to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. A suspicious activity report doesn't sound dramatic, but when you flag a transaction as international money laundering tied to a known shell entity, the system doesn't wait for a committee meeting. It reacts. I entered the transaction ID, flagged the recipient, linked Obsidian Ventures to the federal database entry, checked the boxes that make algorithms scream instead of whisper. Then I hit submit. It felt like dropping a pin on my own bank account and calling in an airstrike. I closed the laptop and waited. Less than 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed with an automated alert. Then another. Then another. Account restricted. Transfer frozen. Linked accounts under review. The financial system's defenses had snapped shut. They didn't just stop the money from moving forward, they froze everything connected to it. Travis's checking account, his savings, even the shell account he thought would protect him. Every digital artery he relied on turned to ice. Wherever he was, whatever he was doing, his world had just gone dark. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Travis. I didn't answer right away. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. When I finally picked up, I didn't say hello. "What did you do?" he screamed. The sound was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "I'm at the ATM. It ate my card. The app says federal freeze. What the hell did you do, Julia?" I swallowed, then softened my voice, pitching it higher, weaker. I reached back into the role he'd trained me to play for years. "I don't know," I said, letting panic leak into every word. "I woke up and the money was gone. I think I was hacked. Travis, I'm scared. That was Rebecca's surgery money." "You liar," he roared. "You called the feds on me." "I didn't call anyone," I sobbed. "If it's frozen, I can't get it back. Please, please help me." There was a pause. I could hear him breathing, hard and fast. I imagined him standing in the glow of the ATM screen, surrounded by strangers, suddenly very aware that he had no money and no control. He needed that cash, not for a vacation anymore, but to stay alive. People behind shell companies don't accept excuses. "Listen to me," he hissed. "You need to fix this. Call the bank and tell them it was authorized. Tell them right now." "I don't know what to say," I whispered. "I need you here. Please, come over. We can sign whatever they need." Silence. Then, "I'm coming," he said. "And you better not be playing games, or I swear to God I'll burn that house down with you inside it." The line went dead. I set the phone down gently. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I felt calm in a way that surprised me. Across the room, Rebecca sat at the kitchen table watching me with wide, focused eyes. "Is he coming?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "He's coming." I walked to the front door and unlocked it. Then I turned off the porch light. I wanted the house to look dark, quiet, scared, like prey. What Travis didn't know was that the report I filed wasn't just a freeze. It was a beacon. A flare fired straight into federal systems, telling them exactly where the money went and who sent it. By the time he arrived, he wouldn't just be dealing with me. He'd be walking into a honeypot. The sound of his fist hitting the door was explosive. He didn't knock. He attacked it. The impact echoed through the house like gunshots. "Open the door!" he shouted. "I know you're in there!" He wasn't just yelling at me. He was performing, making sure the neighbors heard him, setting the story before anyone asked questions. He was the victim. I was the thief. The same tactic he'd used since we were kids. Scream loud enough, and people assume you're right just to make it stop. Rebecca stood in the hallway, clutching her tablet like a shield. She met my eyes and nodded once. I opened the door. Travis stood on the porch, face flushed, sweat beading at his hairline despite the cold. Nicole hovered behind him, her anger replaced by fear. "You think this is funny?" he yelled as he shoved past me, "freezing my accounts." "I didn't freeze them," I said calmly. He spun on me, fingers shaking. "The ATM says federal freeze. Fix it. Call them. Tell them it was authorized." I picked up the folder I'd prepared and handed it to him. "I can't," I said, "because I didn't do it." He looked down. The United States Treasury seal stamped across the top sucked the color from his face. "What is this?" Nicole whispered. "When you moved $185,000 into a shell account," I said evenly, "you triggered a federal wire. That money was tagged the moment it left my account. You didn't send funds, Travis. You sent a signal." He staggered back like I'd struck him. "You set me up," he said weakly. "You ratted on your own family." "You're not family," I replied. "You're a liability." Sirens wailed in the distance, then closer, then right outside. Red and blue lights flooded the windows. Black SUVs blocked the driveway. Travis turned back to me, stripped of all arrogance, panic pouring out of him. "Julia, please, I didn't mean—" "I can't help you," I said. "You're unauthorized." The door burst open. Federal agents flooded the room. Commands shouted, hands raised. Nicole broke first, sobbing, offering information before anyone even asked. I watched the cuffs close around my brother's wrists. Watched him scream my name as they dragged him out. Watched the life he'd stolen unravel in minutes. When the street finally went quiet, I locked the door. Rebecca stood beside me. "Is he gone?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She exhaled. "Good, now we can fix my leg." And we did. The money came back. The surgery happened. Rebecca runs now. No limp, no pain. Travis got 15 years. People ask if I feel guilty. I miss the brother I imagined, not the man who stole from my child. Silence isn't lonely. It's peaceful. And sometimes protecting your future means amputating your past.